of our afternoon sessions of our Rocky Talks for WH Croxford Academy of Mechatronics grade 10. And the students presenting are presenting on their passion projects, on what they've learned through the process and going forward. We are recording these sessions, so if you are joining us, we just ask that during the presentation you keep your mic on mute, and then at the end of each presentation there's a time period where you can unmute and ask the presenter some questions. If you're not comfortable with asking the questions over the computer system, you can type it into the chat box and I'll ask them on your behalf. All right, the next up is Mr. Ethan. When you're ready, sir.
Okay, so this is Tom the robot for the elderly. It's yeah, I'll explain in a second. So this is like my mechatronics experience. So like why I joined. So just like a summary of it is basically like I've always had like an interest in computer science as like when I was growing up. Just because of like my dad, he was kind of a mentor to me. Just through like what he does for work. He's an IT manager. So I kind of got into it that way. Like the benefits of joining for me was like learning more of the software portions of computer science, right? I mainly just worked with hardware or anything like that. Never really got into the software portions. What I plan to do next year, so unfortunately I won't be returning back to the Mechatronics Academy. I will be taking normal classes, but with all that said, it was a great experience and I'm glad I took that experience. My passion project is a robot built for the elderly, so it would be in retirement homes or elderly homes. It transports medicines and avoids objects along the way. Another feature it would have is voice recognition. It could understand commands that you would give it to speak it or like what you'd say to it. So like if you asked it to turn or if you asked it to play you music, any of those little commands, it could say those little things or do those little things, right? So the resources I had was the Sun Founder Pi Smart Kit given to me by Mr. Everett and my Raspberry Pi that I have at home. The problems with my project, they were like endless basically. I had connection errors between my SSH server with and PuTTY. Endless compiler errors, like missing my modules. Like for some reason I was missing like several modules, including the PYGST module, which was like a major problem, and I couldn't find it for like 2 days. My IP address was like manipulated due to the SSH server. I broke screws. Yeah, that's my bad. Sorry about that, Mr. Everett. My battery kept dying. So my solutions, I did fix the IP situation. I had it set and fixed it to my SSH server. I just kept the battery plugged in the whole time. I used the opposite corner tactic. So I had 2 screws and I used it in the opposite corners. And then I never found the compiler error, mainly due to all of the tutorials I was using was based on an old version of Raspbian. So the tutorials that were on the website that I was watching were made in 2015, I'm pretty sure. So the OS system has been updated, and I'm pretty sure they cut that portion, unfortunately. So it made it a lot more difficult to understand what I had to do. So why I'm passionate about this project. Basically anything computer related I'm all about. I love making and creating something that other people can't because it makes me feel a lot smarter and different than other kids. I love to learn new things in computer science, whether it be hardware or software. The reason why I chose the retirement home is because when I go to see my grandparents, they always look so sad and super outdated in there and like depressing. So why not make a robot smile, make them smile a little bit, you know? How it improves the community. It improves the community by helping the old people's mental health, and it could also help during pandemics to reduce human contact so they don't catch the virus. It can give them something to, there's someone to talk to as well. In conclusion, I learned lots of new skills, and I felt like I made a change in a community. Although it never did work, I worked really hard on it as well. and everything else that I could do on this project. Any questions?
Here's a very good example of what happens when you fail, right? So fail first attempt in learning. And as Ethan commented at some point in his presentation, he got stuck with the code. He got very focused on the code and forgot that it wasn't so much about the finished product as it is about what do you learn along the way? How do you take a step back, reflect, figure out an alternative solution, and do the workaround? And, towards the end, he did come up with that, which I'm very appreciative for. But I know that he got stuck for quite a while trying to figure out the simple steps within the code that he needed to figure out. So any questions for my friend?
I can take first question here. I was wondering, with how all these like robots work and all that, how do you plan on having it navigate through a doorway? So you know how doors are normally closed, how to get into the room?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, you could use a doggy door. I don't know. Like, basically, like if it was trying to avoid the door, I guess, like it has sensors, so it can see like the door and everything. But like the actual like opening the door situation, yeah, I guess you just kind of like put a little hole in the bottom of the door or something for the robot to get through. That's where I'm at. I never really thought about that. Thank you, though.
But even when you think of it as like in the situation that we're in right now, you could easily have your robot navigating the hallways, and then whatever employees of that particular retirement center be the ones that opens the door, and just to limit the amount of human contact to contact, so you're not spreading the virus amongst people rather than direct contact kind of concept.
Yeah, it's all it is. It's just following a simple line on the ground, and then it goes through there. So it's a lot easier for the robot to navigate too. So it's pretty cool.
How much is it automated?
Like based off of what I did, or like in general?
Like in general, so like, is it controlled by a person at any point? Does it need a person to control it so it can complete its task?
See, that's the cool thing about Sunfounder, right? So basically, I could have controlled it through the web with an app, or I could have controlled it with voice, or you could do both with voice, and it could follow a line and do it itself. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it, and I don't know. I guess I kind of tried to do all of it at once, and that was a terrible plan. Don't suggest it, but yeah.
Interesting. I can feel you on that. I tried doing that with my video game.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
So project aside, and I know you've said in your presentation that you're not returning next fall.
Yeah.
What would be your 3 major takeaways from your experience this year that are going to carry with you through the rest of your education?
Well, probably the friends I made. Like, I made a lot of different connections with people that have the same passion that I have, and I couldn't really talk about that type of stuff with anyone else because it's nerd stuff. But that probably software related stuff, because I never really worked with software that much, and like just those little like basic like blocks of learning how to code and all of that stuff, like that'll help me pursue hopefully my career outside of high school. And another one would probably be the elements of design. Those were very important, especially with the CAD modeling and the drawings and all of that stuff. Like that might not be important when you're doing it in grade 10, sorry, but like when you go into a career in engineering or any of those like types of construction areas, you're going to have to do that type of stuff. So I think that's like very important.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very cool. Any other questions for him?
I have a question about the Raspberry Pi. So in terms of knowing that I've never even touched Raspberry Pi, can you comment more about the information you're researching and how that was different with what you're working on? If it was more of like hardware application changes, or there's just new software functionalities, like what were the difficulties you had to overcome there?
So basically I'm converting all of my stuff from Raspberry, so like Linux to Windows through PuTTY, right? So it's just I'm switching between two different operating systems constantly. So there's a lot of different manipulations through code and all of that type of things. So basically, I would have compiler errors. So all the code would be right, but like it couldn't compile properly because I would be downloading files that was meant for an OS system that was built like 5 years ago, and there is no new code for it.
Oh, I can see that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else?
So I'm just curious, since you're going to be leaving, I just want to ask you, during your whole year here, what would you say would be your most memorable moment that you've had in Mech Academy?
Probably like, I don't know, like probably just having good conversations about computer science related things with like different types of people. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't been able to do that before, so that was kind of nice. I like the social part of mechatronics for sure. It was very cool.
Will you still be participating in the competitive robotics team?
Yes, sir. I'm for sure still on the team.
That's awesome. And you will be well set up. If you're looking for options for the fall, you'll be well set up for
Wait,
yeah, I see Mr.
Yeah.
Sherman's comment. You'll be well set up for doing robotics 20. Like, you would be advanced for robotics 20.
Yeah, for sure.
You would easily be able to move through those credits as well.
Yeah.
Ethan, not a question for you, but just a comment. I was really impressed that your project, the main purpose of it was to help other people, especially to help seniors in a situation. And I like the way that you applied, sort of, you started with that big idea first. You didn't go, I'm going to build a robot. It seemed to me like you started out with a problem that you want to solve. I want to help other people. That's really super important, I think, in encouraging when engineers are designing projects. They start with the problem, not the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sandham. I agree with that completely.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else?
To add another thing onto your robot design, as I was a little curious about this, seeing how your robot was very small, how would people who are like elderly, since that's your target audience, be able to get items from that robot as it's so small they wouldn't be able to just naturally bend down and grab it?
Yeah, see, there was like an original plan to put arms on it, but then I realized that would take like crazy amounts of time that I didn't have, so I didn't really get into that. But yeah, no, that's a really relevant issue. That would be something like if this was going into actual homes, that you would have to figure out something related to that with picking up items and them bending over, or like mobility issues, and like any of that stuff is like very important. So yeah, something you have to add on to for sure.
You got to remember that everything that you see in these chats are prototypes with the concept of, if it actually took it to the next step, it would be more real life.
Yeah.
So in our case, we wanted to make sure that he had something that he could prototype, test out his understanding on, and then once that got figured out, he could obviously go back and reiterate it and build something more efficient for this project that he wants to have done.
Yeah, because anything to scale, I actually like the scale, but even with the target of being for seniors, you don't have the same mobility access issues that you would have at normal houses. Seniors' homes are all designed for walkers and so forth, so you can actually design a robot that actually would just be on wheels because they're designed for that level of access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Neil. Have a good one. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Sandham has to leave because his better half is using up all the Wi-Fi for her meeting, so we no longer have him present. But thank you for participating. Do we have any other follow-up questions before we let Mr. Ethan off the hot seat?
Strangely enough, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Sherdo.
So I do have a question for Ethan, and I mean, in terms of your design, which sounds like a really awesome design, but when I think of elderly people, one of the things I wanted to think about, and I'm just curious if you considered it in your design, was cost. Because I understand that you would have you chose the Raspberry Pi because it is a very